The Global Business Summit was held recently in the national capital to celebrate the present and anticipate the future. Since its inception in 2015, the Global Business Summit has emerged as Asia's premier meeting place where global thought leaders and experts congregate to discuss ideas and actions for the future. It is an unparalleled gathering where we not only reflect on the past and present, but also anticipate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in the ever-evolving global business landscape. The gala event was graced by the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. During his address from the podium of ET NOW GBS, PM Modi proudly announced that the world has now reposed its trust in India and this is India's time.
Friends, इस बार हमारे अंतरिम बजट को भी एक्सपर्ट्स और मीडिया के हमारे मित्रों की खूब प्रशंसा मिली है। अगर आप हमारे बजट या ओवरऑल पॉलिसी मेकिंग की चर्चा करेंगे तो आपको उसमें कुछ फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल्स नजर आएंगे और वो फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल्स हैं स्टेबिलिटी, कंसिस्टेंसी, कंटिन्यूटी। ये बजट भी उसी का एक्सटेंशन है।
Power shifts to profit. The age of meritocracy was the next power-packed panel discussion where Hina Nagarajan, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Diageo India USL, said that Diageo India is using innovation as the driver of profitability. Here are some takeaways from her session.
Does profitability have to be set aside or does it keep going together like the two growth engines that comes?
Actually, we are using innovation as a driver of profitability.
Correct.
And that's the...
How do you do that?
Yeah, the thing is to, when you take a future back view of the consumer, and then you say, I am only going to launch innovations that are margin accretive. So using innovation as a source of building better profitability, rather than thinking of it as a conflict with profitability, I think is a huge concept that is embedded in our organization. So if you put the context of, look, we need to generate fuel for our investment in brands, and the best way to do it is productivity, it stops being a bad word. Right, and you start embedding it in the organization. And I often joke about this, but it is true and it hits home quite often. I talk to my team very often and say, as parents, all of us push our children to become so able that they, are able to earn a lot of money. And, we hesitate to do that for our own company, which is also our baby. So what's the problem if we tell ourselves that we want to generate more money and be, first as a company? The fact is that when a company does make a lot of money, all the parents that run that company benefit because we get better bonuses, we earn better money, etc. So it's even better to drive the productivity in an organization. And honestly, I think setting this context for the company and its people really hits home. I mean, you got to touch their hearts and tell them that this is why we are doing it. I'm not taking money home just because the organization is being more productive. There will be phases where productivity needs will be higher, when inflation hits higher, like this environment that we are sitting in today, where inflation has been. And there will be periods where maybe there is not a need to crank up so much. But honestly, I feel that the merit is in not letting that discipline go. It takes a long time to bring it back, right? So we drive it as a constant engine in Diageo. We don't let it falter, and we don't let it become a bad word.
After the brainstorming session, Hina Nagarajan also took time for an exclusive interview with ET NOW, where she shared how Diageo has successfully built a brand that is not only responsible towards society, but also has brought sustainability as a driving force for the growth of the company. Here are some snapshots from her interview.
Ma'am, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Now, Diageo operates in a highly competitive industry, in a highly niche business, some would say. What's the key to prioritizing sustainability and building a sustainable business within the contours of the dynamics that you're facing?
First of all, India is at an inflection point, right? I mean, if you just look at the level of affluence in the country and the growing affluence, and according to a McKinsey study, India will have the third highest number of affluent households, right? And then you have the the largest young economy in the world,
right?
And we are going to add 100 million new consumers who get into legal drinking age in this country over the next 5 years. Bodes really well for our industry, right? And then the boom towns are sort of exploding, right? The aspiration there is exploding. We've got new consumer cohorts coming who are really into experiences, authenticity, local pride, sustainability, and women are becoming a very significant consumer group, right, for our industry. So in this context, when I came in 2021, we actually reshaped our strategy, right? And we launched a new mission to be a top performing company, a consumer company in India, right? Delivering double-digit profitable top-line growth and long-term value to all our stakeholders, right? And we actually launched this strategy with 3 pillars, right? The first one was reshaping our portfolio to leverage the rapid premiumization in the industry, and really to look at a future-back lens of the consumer rather than looking present forward. Yeah? The second pillar of our strategy was building an organization of the future. I mean, digital, that's all you hear these days, right? So obviously accelerating digital in our company, and also building capabilities in consumer insight, innovation, liquid capability, which is critical for us, distillation, maturation, and really being able to deliver rapidly innovation that again caters to the consumer, and making our company a very progressive company. In fact, we are trying to be one of the most progressive companies in India. We have very progressive policies. We were the first ones to launch a 26-week child leave. Whether you are a male or a female doesn't matter.
Phenomenal.
Right? We have launched insurance for same-sex partners. So, we are sort of breaking ground with these progressive policies. The third area is also about playing a much more ambitious role in society, right? It's called Diageo in Society, Spirit of Progress Action Plan, and it works on 3 pillars. Basically pioneering grain-to-glass sustainability, championing inclusion and diversity, and promoting positive drinking. And, we see this strategy working. Since we launched this strategy, our growth rates have tripled overall. We were 5% growth between 2016 and 2021. Now we are at 15% growth last year overall. Our premium portfolio is growing 3 times as well. So we declared 17% growth on that portfolio. Our margins are moving on the right track. We've said that we want to do mid to high teen margins. We've just declared about 17% margin. So we are all on the right track. And I'm very confident that with these 3 pillars and taking that future back lens to the consumer, who's at the very heart of our strategy, and also accelerating investment in our strategic priorities, we will be able to really build a very competitive and fast-growing business in this industry, which is not as niche now. I think it's becoming more broad-based, and it promises to have a lot of potential as we go along because of the macroeconomics of the country.
Ma'am, you've summarized it well, and we certainly look forward to all that lies ahead. But by way of a follow-up question, how challenging is it to strike that balance between building a business for profit and essentially, in the same token, prioritizing the greater good?
At Diageo, we firmly believe that social or environmental goals are not to the exclusion of profitability. In fact, they're very closely linked. And in fact, both sit in the heart of our strategy. Our sustainability agenda is meant to not only do good for communities and the planet, but we also look at how it brings us cost efficiency and how do we make it a solid consumer proposition. Consumers are really wanting more sustainability. They're looking for companies that do better, do good for the planet, and therefore our propositions are going down really well with them. So it's a win-win, and therefore we call it a triple win. Right.
Well, Hina, I think it's fair to say that Diageo is setting an industry-leading example. We certainly salute you, we applaud all your efforts, and we wish you a wonderful summit ahead. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
The next panel discussion addressed a very important topic, which was Can Art Question Gender? The session was chaired by Ruchira Jaitley, Chief Marketing Officer, Diageo India, where the esteemed panelists dived deep into the topic and discussed how inclusive art is challenging the gender norms in India. Take a look.
I am delighted to have all of you here to talk about something, we're talking about disruption, we're talking about change and innovation. And while all of that comes at us at the pace of light, the fact is with it are the conversations that are really changing the way we're looking at the fabric of our own Indian society. And before you, you've got some of the most amazing talent that's been out there as visionaries, bringing that alive. So we've got a stellar panel here. I'm going to start with you, Bose, right? And ask you about your journey in what made you think of something as large in scale as Kochi Biennale and taking and democratizing art and putting it right out there? And how do you think it has worked to represent people who didn't have a voice?
When we talk about contemporary art, it's very important to know the history in some ways, We used to have a Trinale in India in 1968. Trinale means every 3 years at Rabindra Bhavan here in Delhi. But unfortunately, we could not have many festivals like Contemporary Art Festival. This destiny taken place, then Culture and Education Minister of Kerala, Sri M. Baby had visited my home, said, what is the best thing can be offered to the state? So with my colleague, I suggested a Biennale would be the right thing to do. So we produced a small catalog, a brochure with what is a Biennale, why we are doing it. So that was the beginning. And, like last edition, we had nearly 900,000 people visited. The first edition onwards, people noticed we have people from around the world coming to Kochi.
Nupur, what about you and how do you see giving agency to underrepresented people? In your case, you've done it not just with students, social media to begin with. This was new. Hip Hip Hooray was its cult for a lot of people. There's 4 shots more about women, seen in a way that's refreshing, that doesn't take away their own agency. You talked about Jugal and Romil, which took to Romeo and Juliet in a non-cisgendered manner. And all of it coming from a woman director behind the lens, right? And for all of you, at Diageo, we work very, very closely with a whole range of diverse people from behind to in front. And we realize that it is not easy to get those voices around. So how do you see this as a platform?
First of all, I'm so happy, when I heard that the CMO and the CEO of Diageo are women, and I was like, more power to all of us, because as we know that across the corporate world, as well as the film world, the representation of women is so low. I think there are, amongst directors, there are just 17% directors who are female in India, and that's actually even in the world. So it's kind of shocking. Those kind of numbers are quite shocking. And I feel that more women hire women. So as far as I'm personally concerned, I always try to hire my crew. I've always had a female DOP, editor, across the board. At least a 50% crew is women. And I think that just sort of empowers them to say that, yes, I can also sort of, make that leap, make that journey. But it's hard. The film business is just so hard. The economics of it are so hard, and it's been primarily so male-driven. But I feel that through my work, I'm an ally. We're talking about gender today, so I'm a great ally. And I think that it's great that there's On Air who's sort of pushing that envelope. I, as an ally, pushed that envelope in my work. FOMO Shots had, a lot of that. But even just when I'm talking about women characters, I try to sort of ensure that they have agency. That they are leading lives, the lives that they want to lead, without caring a damn about what society says. And I think that's very important. That makes people very uncomfortable. It's okay to see somebody on US television or a US film do that, but when you see an Indian woman do that, it kind of shakes people up and like, oh my God, औरतें ऐसी नहीं होती, but होती हैं भाई,
Thank you. That's a wonderful segue because Onir and I were having exactly this conversation, if you recall, right? I mean, it's not just about the fact that you're out and proud. It's not just about the fact that you've used it as very potent material, taken across in a very inclusive way, which people have loved watching. You spoke about the fact that having your own voice and giving agency is more important than someone else's narrative telling your story. So how have you felt as someone who's really questioned identity, sexuality, and done it on the biggest screen, which is, Indian cinema?
I think for the longest time we've been talking about how important it is for women to be behind the camera because women bring along the feminine gaze. Now recently there was this beautiful film called Anatomy of a Fall, shot by a women filmmaker, and the way Grey is shown, I've never seen it like that. It's with so much of kindness and love that to show that all of us have our weakness and we falter at the same time. We are beautiful. And I feel similarly what is not happening still is I feel the queer gaze is different. It's very, very important to have queer people directing behind, telling our stories, because I have grown up having accepted, having celebrated, having known the heterosexual world. I grew up when my identity was invisible, with no references. First learn to accept the heterosexual world, and now it's come up to us to also make them try and understand to accept us, And I feel that very often what I'm told when I'm talking to various platforms, studios, like, we are taking baby steps. And I'm like, but, I'm not taking baby steps in my life. If I'm doing a story about a heterosexual love story or relationship, I don't need someone who is a counselor who is trying to explain to me, And I very often hear, the need to try and understand. There is also a huge amount of discomfort among actors, when they have to do anything intimate. If it's especially a gay role, then there'll be actors telling me, oh, I'm comfortable if it's a woman. And I'm like, but you're not supposed to be enjoying this. You're just supposed to be acting this out, And the sense of insecurity, and even, every time we are told that because again, film business is so much, it's business. Despite I feel it's the youngest form of art, and I would like to call myself an artist, but it's almost like a negative word in Bollywood, So you're constantly told that you have to tell stories which is acceptable. So again, my narratives are dependent on what a majoritarian world wants to see. And it is just the same thing that happened when, recently the Supreme Court was talking about marriage equality, that one is told that, if the society is not yet ready. And I'm like, a lifetime for me has passed trying to get decriminalized, and how long do we need to wait? Because you are not capable of celebrating someone else's happiness. I can.
Aqib is someone we've worked with in the way he's brought alive through design and through experiences. How he brings alive and elevates really what people see and experience has been fantastic. Aqib, your work has been about co-creation and community, right? So while you do push boundaries, juxtaposing what is traditional art with the way you think it can be consumed and made contemporary, and therefore supporting communities, has been very, very different. And now you're on one of the biggest stages in the world, right? With the Indian cricket jersey. So for all of those who don't know, he designed it. Yeah? A big round of applause for him.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what for you has been those boundaries that you have pushed?
See, for me, where I come from, I'm a Kashmiri. And then being in a setting like, trying to do things the way I see fit. I'm also a self-taught designer, firstly, right? So obviously for me, doing things the way I see fit is always going to be something that people will be like, "Arey, tumko kya pata? Tumne to kahin padhai kari nahi hai." But that didn't really stop me to do what I wanted to do, and really went in with my gut to say, let's just do things the way I see fit, really. And that's just made me pick on things one after the other, and I've just really given my shot at it. And along the way is where I've realized, collaboration is the key really, because, you can probably get to a level by your own self, but you need the support. You need really to be collaborating with others to also sort of, not only help the community, but also sort of, try out new things, experiment. Like for me, the jacket, you spoke about earlier. Now this is a thing that obviously I went back to my roots and, collaborated with the Kashmiri artisans. Now this poor chap, being a national awardee, was, had given up on this art and was actually driving an auto rickshaw for a living. And that really broke my heart. And I was like, you know what? Here, let's try something new. And obviously I felt like maybe this is something that he will probably be uncomfortable with, but to my surprise, he loved it. And now we're doing this more often now. So, obviously collaboration, which led to many such collaborations across different platforms, across different audiences. And I just feel like, co-creation, collaboration really is the way forward as an entrepreneur, really.
Equal opportunity, equal pay, educate and sensitize, and create that commercial market because it exists. It's just not in your mind, it exists. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruchira.
After the invigorating panel discussion, Ruchira Jaitley also took out time for an exclusive interview with ET Now, where she talked about the Indian market and stressed that Diageo is a brand with purpose. Here is how. Listen in.
Ma'am, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Pooja. Wonderful to be here.
Ma'am, for sake of some context setting, I know it's a difficult question, but broadly speaking, how has the Indian consumer evolved?
With a number of affluent Indians coming into the top tiers of income. And this is a large phenomenon coming in line with the GDP growth that we're seeing, the kind of progress we're seeing in the country. So with all of that happening, we're seeing this whole bent of mind towards premiumization. Premium brands, premium experiences, whether it is, and that's across sectors. It's a secular trend. So we're excited to see that. Indians today are counted as, some of the key consumer groups for all industries across the world, right? So that's one thing. Technology, of course, continues to be an enduring trend, but what's changing is the way consumers are now using technology for commerce, using technology to solve problems. It's fantastic. So technology continues to be a big driving force.
I think Diageo has long been admired as a brand with a purpose.
Every person who enters Diageo is encouraged to find their purpose in what they do. And that finds its way into the way the organization is able to channel all that energy and put it out in the business that we do. Whether it is about net zero carbon, whether it's about renewable energy, whether it's grain to glass sustainability. So that's one part of the purpose. And we report it as part of our annual report. And by the way, India, Diageo India, is really leading the charge, even amongst global. And that's a lot to do with the innovation and the kind of thinking that our own employees bring to their work every day, because we feel charged by the fact that we're purposeful. But equally, our biggest platform for showing that we really, really mean business is on our brands, right? Because that's what consumers look at and that's what they see all the time. We're talking about the change that we're seeing in society that all of us want, right? So that gives us, that's a platform to empower people like that. And the other one is on diverse voices and underrepresented groups. So I don't know if you know this, but 45% of the people who work on everything that I do in marketing, from behind the camera, people behind the camera, to people in front of the camera, are diverse voices, right? And we choose to get those diverse voices to come up, and we want to encourage them and give them a platform. We actually had recently a hearing impaired, hearing challenged person who was part of the main story, who was given agency, representation, and was part of the storyline. And we do it because that's the kind of storytelling we want to do on our brands. That's what our brands really stand for as well.
Well, Ruchira, thank you so much for taking the time to share these rich insights with us. We wish you all the very best for what lies ahead.
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you for this conversation. It's been fantastic.